Chengdu, with more than 20 million residents, is a megacity where ancient traditions and modern life converge. Several dozen kilometers from its bustling downtown lies the small county called Guanghan. Last century, an archaeological discovery here astonished the world. The awe inspired by Sanxingdui was like that of 19th century archaeologists, right when they came to Egypt and saw the pyramids for the first time. It echoed the wonder, sparked by Machu Picchu in the early 20th century. The world was amazed by the mystery and grandeur created by the ancients. Sanxingdui ruins site was deemed one of the greatest 20th century archaeological discoveries. Sanxingdui, an ancient city, reawakened after 3,000 years and amazed the world. In southwest China, just over 100 kilometers from the Yangtze River, a site described as a wonder of the world is gradually unveiling its mysteries. It is Sanxingdui. Here, archaeologists are carefully uncovering extraordinary treasures. Vast numbers of bronze wares, dazzling gold, lustrous jade, and hundreds of precious ivory tusks. 8 sacrificial pits lie side by side, like a treasure vault sealed for millennia, yielding one astonishing discovery after another. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for archaeologists.
These things show an extraordinary visual and philosophical creativity.
Sanxingdui is exceptionally unique and truly miraculous. For many artifacts, we can't even put a name to them. That feeling was incredibly profound.
Thousands of newly unearthed artifacts put us in the Bronze Age, an era contemporary with the pharaonic dynasties of ancient Egypt. For nearly a century, archaeologists have worked tirelessly to decipher the secrets of this long-buried kingdom. Why were so many unique and extraordinary artifacts buried together here? Who dug these pits? For what purpose? And why exactly did this once brilliant, once glorious civilization vanish so mysteriously? To protect the relics, the latest round of excavations at Sanxingdui introduced glass-domed archaeological cabins, fitted with temperature and humidity control systems. Air, soil, lighting, and other environmental factors are monitored and adjusted around the clock to keep all conditions within a safe range.
Large protective shelters were built, housing archaeological cabins and a full range of modern equipment. Even the on-site cultural artifact conservation laboratory was built inside the shelters. This kind of arrangement is truly unprecedented in Chinese archaeology.
With temperatures at 20 to 25 degrees and humidity at around 80%. Wind, rain, and changing weather no longer disrupt excavation fieldwork. This is technology empowerment. Over 3 years, aided by new technologies, archaeologists conducted Detailed excavations of sacrificial pits number 3 to number 8. Numerous remarkable and precious relics were unearthed. Though the pits vary in size, each holds a wealth of extraordinary treasures.
More importantly, these pits preserve information about every aspect of a society, a country, like its, say, history, economy, art, culture, and religion. Unlocking this information requires the support of many advanced scientific methods.
For a long time, the narrative of ancient Chinese civilization focused on the middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, represented by sites such as Erlito and Anyang. The discovery of Sanxingdui suggested that another major civilization of equally great importance may have flourished to their west during the Late Bronze Age. In 1929, Yan Daoqing, a farmer who lived in Uwe Liangguan, noticed that the ditch behind his house was blocked. When clearing it out, his family unexpectedly uncovered many ancient artifacts. A treasure that astonished the world was thus discovered. Over the decades, generations of archaeologists devoted their lives to repeated excavations and research. A brilliant ancient civilization gradually came into view. This country path, the only route to the excavation site, is like a tunnel through time, linking past and present, and carrying countless memories. Now in his 70s, Chen Doan returned here. He felt right at home here. Nearly 40 years ago, he was in a crucial excavation at the Sanxingdui ruins site. The moment he raised a massive bronze mask overhead, became part of archaeological history. In 1986, brick factory workers uncovered fragments of jade and bronze while digging for clay. The first sacrificial pit, K1, was brought to light. Fresh out of university, Chen served as one of the first on-site supervisors in the excavation.
Before sacrificial pit number 1 was discovered, in 1986, this whole area was farmland. There were no excavation shelters in this place back then, just a brick workshop. The discovery of pit number 1 left us completely unprepared for what had just been found. The discovery came suddenly. It was unexpected, so it was a rescue excavation. Preparations hadn't even been made. We worked with local villagers to figure things out. One night, while clearing the pit, we suddenly saw part of a gold artifact about this long. A gold scepter. Only the very tip was showing.
On the gold foil wrapped around it, Chen identified intricate designs of bird heads, fish, and arrows.
There was a lot of speculation, but to make absolutely sure the relics would stay safe, we suspended that line of excavation.
The head figure on it wears a 5-pronged ritual crown and triangular earrings. Birds and fish are in the same direction, and arrow-shaped symbols are beneath them. These strange yet gorgeous designs require remarkable craftsmanship. This gold scepter, unearthed at Sanxingdui, bears 2 decorative bands, carved by the ancient Shu people. The line's elegant flows and delicacy reveal a high level of craftsmanship.
Numerous bird-related relics were found at the site, along with the gold scepter from pit number 1. Based on current research, scholars tentatively associate Sanxingdui with Yufu, a ruler mentioned in ancient historical texts.
Yufu, the legendary third ruler of the ancient Shu, was named after a bird that dives into water to catch fish. Numerous bird-related relics of different types were found at Sanxingdui. They revealed the ancient Shu people's reverence for birds. Can these bird-shaped relics and the gold scepter, an emblem of power, prove that Sanxingdui was Yufu's royal capital? As something symbolizing both divine and royal power, does this scepter indicate the presence of a royal tomb beneath the site? Seeking answers, workers uncovered a second pit, only a few meters away. Buried at a shallow depth were vast numbers of bronze wares, masks, head sculptures, and even giant standing figures. Strangely, not a single human bone was found.
Well, we guessed it was a burial site, but after ruling out the possibility of a tomb, it was most likely a sacrificial pit.
The absence of human skeletons, combined with the ritual nature of the artifacts, led archaeologists to identify the pits as sacrificial ones. Then came an even more startling finding: a colossal bronze mask. It has cylindrical, protruding eyes, and it measures up to 20 centimeters in length.
Those protruding eyes immediately reminded us of Sanxingdui, the legendary ancestor of the ancient Shu people. He was recorded in the chronicles of Huaiyang. Sanxingdui was the first king of the Shu people.
Archaeologists linked the owner of the mask to Sanxingdui, a legendary ruler of the ancient Shu. Like Yufu, Sanxingdui was known as a king of the ancient Shu. For centuries, this mysterious kingdom was regarded as little more than myth. Could these discoveries confirm that those ancient legends and traditions were based on reality? Jay Shu, a Chinese-American scholar, has his own perspective.
There are some written documents written many, many hundreds of years later than Sanxingdui, mention the ancient history of Sichuan. And the local kingdom had the first king called Sanxong. And Sanxong meaning the being that had protruding pupil. Some of the scholars immediately say, hey, this is the image of Sanxong. I'm not so sure.
If Sanxingdui can be confirmed as the site of the ancient Shu, it'd matter greatly to the study of the diversity of Chinese civilization. The question has drawn worldwide attention. Sinologist Jessica Rawson believes the existence of the ancient Shu on the Chengdu Plain is plausible.
Sichuan is located in a deep basin with high mountains all around it. Tibet goes right up to 4,000 meters. It's a very important basin because it has a good climate and it's totally protected and isolated.
Professor Rawson points out that thousands of years ago, the rise of a kingdom required not just favorable natural conditions, but also a strong material foundation. Sanxingdui meets these requirements in every respect.
The thing that matters in Sichuan is not the contact north or south, but the fact that it's one of the most prosperous areas in China. And it's prosperous because of the rice.
This carbonized particle, labeled F01, is about 2 millimeters wide and 3.6 millimeters long, even smaller than a bean. To determine its composition and age, the archaeologists immediately carried out detailed laboratory analysis. As it was highly carbonized, every step had to be performed with extreme care. One careless move could shatter it. Opportunities to find answers are rare and costly. So, among all the unearthed artifacts, why did such a tiny charcoal particle attract the attention of archaeologists?
This carbonized grain is the same rice we eat today. It gives us stronger evidence that rice was probably the staple food of the ancient Shu people.
Rice preserved in the Sanxingdui strata shows that rice was already the staple for the Shu people more than 3,000 years ago. Yet, many mysteries about this ancient city remain unsolved. What can we learn about Sanxingdui society? What were the people like who once lived around these peculiar sculptures? Questions like these have long been occupying Ren Junfeng and his colleagues. Years of meticulous work have made Ren an expert on Sanxingdui sculptures. Now, he is examining a typical Sanxingdui bronze head. After being buried for 3,000 years, its condition is remarkable.
What you see now is how it looked when excavated, as we haven't treated or restored it. This is a flat-topped bronze head. But as we can see here, the part my hand directs, part of the top of this sculpture is actually missing. Corrosion over time created this hole at the front of the neck. You can also see a slight downward bend in this area. When it was complete, that section projected outward vertically. In the center, there's a circular black layer. It actually represents the pupil, painted with black pigment.
After the exterior, Ren turns his attention to the inside of the head, a place that often yields surprises. One bronze fragment he quickly identifies turns out to be part of an eye.
Its edge extends at a right angle. Its right angle, you see. It was probably part of either a half or quarter section of an eye-shaped artifact.
Many eye-shaped artifacts were unearthed at Sanxingdui, yet their meaning remains unknown. Holes along the edges suggest that they were once mounted on pillars, beams, or trees. To uncover more secrets, Ren keeps examining the interior.
These pieces I'm holding are fragments of ivory. Here's another tiny thing. It is a small fragment, a shell fragment. At Sanxingdui, we found lots of shells like this, and many of them had originally been stored inside containers.
The roughly 150 bronze heads unearthed so far all feature almond-shaped eyes and pierced ears. However, each shows subtle differences. Experts believe that these subtle variations they found may indicate differences in rank or identity among the figures made by the Shu people. Zhao Hao of Peking University has conducted research on this topic.
What sets this head apart is the ornament, located on the back of the figure's head, what we call a hair bun ornament. This likely reflects an actual hairstyle or ornament worn by people then. We can see hairstyles are one of the main differences among bronze sculptures from Sanxingdui. Bronze heads with a hair bun are rare at Sanxingdui, probably fewer than 10 in total. In that case, large rear head ornaments are quite rare. That may indicate that the individual held a distinct status or occupied a higher ranking position within the religious hierarchy inside Sanxingdui's broader social and religious system.
Zhao is in charge of the excavation of sacrificial pit number 8. He observed that bronze heads at Sanxingdui differ in hairstyle. Most of them have braided hairstyles, while a minority feature buns. Jay Shu, former director of the Asian Art Museum, has spent years studying Sanxingdui bronzes. He spent 40 years unraveling the mystery of these bronze heads.
Because it's overwhelmingly striking in its sculpture tradition. That's distinguished Sanxingdui from any other cultures during ancient China.
One of the most spectacular relics is the 2.6-meter-tall bronze standing figure. The grooves at the back suggest it once had a hair bun, which shows elite status.
This is one and only full-length bronze figure from Sanxingdui, from ancient times in China and in the world.
Its elaborately detailed robes clearly signal its extraordinary status. Such a garment suggests he was one of Sanxingdui's highest-ranking leaders.
You can see those 3 layers very clearly on the right side of the figure. The outermost layer of garment, which is a mantle, has 4 beautiful dragons. But he is barefooted. He is standing on a sacred ground.
The figure is depicted in a posture of offering. Many human figures unearthed at Sanxingdui share this position.
Who could imagine? Back in the time of Sanxingdui, this figure had been worshipped, admired upon by local population for 100 or more years. Clearly, this figure represents power, probably the highest power of the local society.
These monumental sculptures reveal just a glimpse of Sanxingdui's mysteries. Experts follow other lines of evidence. The burial pattern at Sanxingdui is unusual and consistent. Archaeologists have never encountered anything quite like it before.
Broken gold, bronze, and jade artifacts were buried first, followed by intact ivory, then a layer of ash. Before the pits were backfilled and compacted.
Why were all these artifacts deliberately damaged? What happened here? Thousands of years ago? Were the people struck by war? Or was this some form of ritual farewell? Archaeologists continue searching for answers. Some artifacts in the pits were shattered into fragments of varying sizes, as if subjected to heavy impact and crushing. Others bear clear traces of burning, with blackened surfaces and visible carbonized patterns.
Almost all the artifacts were destroyed, then burned and smashed apart before they were placed in the pits. This is extremely unusual and distinctive, a unique way of treating artifacts that we've really never seen before. It's also one of the key things that still puzzles me the most.
Experience suggests that carbonized layers often conceal tiny overlooked remains. Above all, researchers hope to find traces of silk. In 1986, the 2.6-meter bronze standing figure was unearthed from pit number 2, wearing robes decorated with intricate patterns. Some experts believe that these elaborate garments might be made of silk. Yet silk, as an organic material, rarely survives. Therefore, the Sichuan Provincial Cultural Relics and Archaeology Research Institute had a survey of a large scale of bronze fragments unearthed from Sanxingdui, looking for markings left by silk. Markings are formed when silk leaves an imprint through the corrosion on bronze. Once fully mineralized, they're fairly well preserved. Researchers examined the metal fragments under microscopes, searching millimeter by millimeter. After this large-scale survey, in September 2020, archaeologists finally found markings of silk on multiple bronze fragments. Under the scope, the structure of the fabric was clearly visible. Sichuan was once called Shu. Its Chinese character is like a silkworm, with a prominent eye above and a curled body below. Experts believe that the names of the Shu kingdom and its first king, Sanxingdui, suggest Sichuan was one of the birthplaces of silk. Using advanced technology, experts found traces of silk in multiple sacrificial pits, providing valuable primary evidence. Another important discovery was that fragments of the same artifact were scattered across different pits, offering key clues to how the artifacts were deposited.
Being able to reconstruct a complete artifact from these fragments is important. It suggests that these pits were created at the same time. The damaged artifacts were placed nearby at the time. 8 separate pits were dug at the same time, and fragments from the same broken objects, already shattered, were deliberately distributed and buried across those pits.
Archaeologists now face the daunting task of reassembling thousands of fragments bit by bit, scattered across 8 pits. The challenge is that there were no written records describing their original form. Restorers must be bold in innovations. One mystery that has captivated researchers for 40 years is a sacred tree cast entirely in bronze. In Bronze Age agricultural societies, such trees were often seen as the center of the world and were revered across regions like Persia, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. For Yu Jian, Deputy Director of the Sanxingdui Museum, restoring sacred tree number 1 is vital. He decided to use a newly discovered bronze fragment. That could be the missing piece of the puzzle.
The section we're looking at broke apart from 2 directions and should be rejoined. However, the 2 breaks are actually different. We can still see some traces of casting clay on the upper part of this artifact. This fragment was unearthed from pit number 8. To me, it appears to be part of a Chinese dragon's tail. It has the twisted, double spiral form as the lower part of a dragon on the sacred tree is now missing from the lower section, we suspect that this particular fragment may be closely related in some way to the incomplete bronze dragon on the sacred tree. Since the new Sanxingdui Museum building is under construction, we will have the sacred tree relocated into the new museum building. So during the sacred tree's relocation process, we'll have a chance to test whether this dragon tail can match the bronze dragon on the sacred tree.
After 3D scanning, this fragment is added to the Sanxingdui Museum database. The system records every decorative detail and curve with millimeter-level precision, and an error margin of less than 0.05 millimeters. Corrosion marks and fracture textures are converted into 3D data, avoiding further physical damage, while creating accurate records for future matching.
After we log in, now we can enter the specific data of the sacred tree and retrieve its 3D information. This is the digital model of sacred tree number 1. Here is the main trunk. The trunk appears that it is likely to be connected to the dragon's tail. These kinds of small detailed clues are extremely helpful for future restoration and research.
In 1986, this nearly 4-meter-tall bronze sacred tree was discovered in pit number 2, shattered into nearly 200 pieces. Its restoration has occupied Guohanzhong, an experienced restorer, for almost 40 years.
Seems this section connects to that one, through another piece.
Yeah, right now, what we are looking at is the dragon's tail and rear end.
It serves as a link. I think this is how it links the dragon to the trunk.
Next, we can test how it fits with the sacred tree.
Yeah.
Yes, what you're saying makes sense. This part of the trunk already aligns with this part, so its position is basically fixed.
If you zoom the whole image out, the pattern becomes clear. See? These branches split like 2 arms. One's here, and the other's here. This is where the rear part ends.
There are missing sections here, right? Something's missing here. Anything missing here?
There must be something missing. You need to rotate this. Keep that still. Rotate this one here. Yes, just like that. Link this one with that. Move that one closer. Almost, closer. Reconstruct this section. This part, right? Everything matches up now.
At last, the dragon's tail was finally restored to its original place, digitally reuniting with the treetop. With this problem solved, the sacred tree emerged, more complete than ever before. For decades, experts like Guohanzhong and Yu Jian have reconstructed the picture of Sanxingdui piece by piece. They have exhausted every possibility in search of answers.
Connect it here.
Yeah, we'll only connect the large one.
Once the twisting form comes back, the dragon is full of motion and energy. Every connection fits into the exact right place.
Digital tools are of great help to the researchers and have greatly accelerated the reconstruction. Yet many parts of the sacred tree are still missing. Moreover, countless fragments from other artifacts remain unmatched. This is destined to be an exploration with no clear end in sight. Beyond those awaiting reconstruction, many mysteries of Sanxingdui remain. Above the layer of broken and burned artifacts lies a thick deposit of ivory, raising even more questions. There are nearly 1,000 tusks buried at the site. Why are there so many of them? What role did ivory play in the ancient Shu society? And why was it placed? Between the artifacts and the ashes? Professor Rowan Flad of Harvard University, a leading scholar of Chinese archaeology, has a great interest in the ivory buried at Sanxingdui and has devoted great effort to investigating it.
The elephant tusks found in this number and concentrated in contexts like sacrificial pits is not really discovered anywhere else in East Asia or Southeast Asia, to my knowledge. To have so many elephant tusks buried together in an intentional deposit is really unique.
At Jinsha site, another major archaeological site, several dozen kilometers from Sanxingdui, a remarkable jade artifact was unearthed. Its decorative patterns offered Professor Flad great inspiration.
The depiction that we have of ivory on the jade objects where somebody's carrying one over their shoulder is very significant because it demonstrates that the bringing in of this ivory was itself a very ritually meaningful act and a socially meaningful act. They were brought together individually as a contribution to the ritual activities going on at Sanxingdui and as a symbol of membership or incorporation into that broader regional society.
Flad suggests that these tusks might be gifts presented by neighboring tribes seeking to join a Sanxingdui alliance. If so, it would point to close interaction between Sanxingdui and the surrounding regions, while also reflecting the far-reaching influence of the ancient Shu civilization. Now, conservation is an urgent priority. Excavated ivory is vulnerable. Archaeologists are racing against time. The tusks are wrapped in damp cloth and rushed to refrigerated rooms. Wang Chong of the Sichuan Provincial Cultural Relics and Archaeology Research Institute is developing a long-term solution.
In the early days, this issue didn't receive enough attention. As a result, the first batch of ivory has almost been ruined. Looking closely at these photos, we can clearly see what happens when excavated ivory loses moisture under natural conditions in the open air. In the first picture, freshly unearthed, the structure was still dense. There also weren't really many cracks. The second picture shows how it looked on the 10th day. Large cracks had already started to appear. The crack was pretty obvious. 4 months later, this entire section collapsed. So if the ivory continues to be kept under such conditions, we can easily tell that it will fall apart soon.
4 months. Wang has been testing a method to stabilize the ivory with no damage.
Now we're only dealing with dehydration. The ivory is soaking in a solution that replaces the moisture in it. Right now, it has become our daily task to measure the concentration. Every week, we monitor whether it changes. Once everything reaches a stable state, we'll move on to reinforcement.
These tusks, buried for thousands of years, are close to complete decay. Researchers must remove moisture while reinforcing their structures. Through repeated experiments, Wang refines the formula. Early results from the latest trial are promising.
The enamel layer on this side of the tusk is still in pretty good condition.
Intact.
The dark marks, they're quite clear, and we can manage to preserve them. They're burn marks from the fire. And they're preserved. Remind me how long it has been since it's out?
It was finished in last October or November.
October, so it's been almost
a year now.
Yeah, it's pretty good that it's still in this condition after a year.
The formula for saving these tusks may prove successful. What is certain is that the quantity of ivory shows Sanxingdui's striking economic power. Each elephant has only 2 tusks. 1,000 tusks represent at least 500 male elephants. But where did so many elephants come from? What puzzles the experts is that Apart from a few molars, no other elephant remains were found. It seems that only the tusks, symbols of value, were brought to Sanxingdui.
We don't have other elephant remains that have been discovered within the pits or elsewhere within these sites in Sichuan, suggesting that they are not a common part of the faunal assemblage of the animal groups with which people are interacting regularly.
The source of Sanxingdui's enormous ivory deposits has long been debated by experts worldwide. Did the tusks come from local elephants? Flad remains skeptical about this.
It is not clear to me that the people at Sanxingdui who were living there had regular interactions with elephants. Now, some of the work that is being done to try to identify the locations from which the elephant tusks come suggests that at least some of them, if not all of them, came from some distance away. Furthermore, what I think of as attempts to depict elephants in one way or another within the bronze iconography is seemingly done by people who don't really know what elephants look like.
Interestingly, elephants depicted in Sanxingdui and other ancient Shu artifacts are portrayed as mythical creatures combining traits of many animals, while most other animal images are quite realistic. Flad believes that the ivory came from distant regions. These elephants were unlikely to be local. So where did these tusks come from? And where did those elephants once roam? Tang Zihua, an isotope geochemist from Beijing, will solve the problem with cutting-edge technology.
Mr. Xia.
We used to disinfect things with alcohol. Later, we found alcohol only weakens the bacteria. Actually, it cannot kill those bacteria and stuff. So we use UV sterilization to keep external contamination out of here.
Yeah. That's a lot. These boxes contain small fragments of ivory.
Smaller ones.
Let's choose this one.
Right.
It's from pit number 7.
Right, all from pit number 7.
Right. Which piece can I take? I see the larger one. That's the one I'd like.
Outer surface, outer layer of tusks.
Surface attached. Great, this sample is done.
With the assistance of experts from Sichuan, Tang collected representative samples, including tusk fragments and the extremely rare molars. An analysis of the ivory's origin was carried out at CAS Institute of Geology and Geophysics.
Please name this, Mr. Tong, and you.
Just name it Sanxingdui.
Sanxingdui, right?
SXD.
We could drill from the bottom upward. This is the point we marked below. Take a look.
Yep.
The one from below. Maybe you can drill upward from here, starting from this point later.
Sure, we could move the point lower, because the point.
Okay.
Isotopes such as strontium enter animal tissues through water and food. The isotopic composition reveals where an animal lived during the final decades of its life.
The Sichuan basin where Sanxingdui is located is Paleozoic limestone, giving it low strontium values. If we see a difference in the strontium signatures, especially between the Tusks and the Sichuan basin, then we...
So you need to compare it with regional backgrounds.
We actually have a map for that already.
With over 1,300 rock and soil samples, Tang Zihua's team produced an isotopic map of China. It provides help for identifying where the ivory came from.
The earlier part of its life shows strontium values much higher than the typical values found in the Sichuan basin. But near the root, the bottom of this tusk, which records a later stage of life before its death, the signal closely matches the Sichuan basin. One possible explanation is that this particular elephant may have spent its final years before death in the Sichuan basin region, while earlier in life, it may have lived somewhere outside Sichuan, where strontium values were higher.
The study confirmed that at least one elephant originated far to the south, before reaching the ancient Shu capital. Sanxingdui was closely connected to other parts of China through extensive exchange networks. Other artifacts found in the pits provide further evidence of these connections, including many cowrie shells used as currency. These shells have attracted growing scientific interest and opened new avenues of research.
Among Sanxingdui bronze wares, I think this is the most central and vital category among all the ritual objects. This is a depiction of a scene from real life. To me, it shows a person riding an elephant with a container full of shells balanced on their head. Why is that? Most likely presenting these precious cowries as offerings during a ceremony. So this represents a system of tribute and resource offering.
These artifacts showcase the central role of cowries as valuable ritual offerings. But where did thousands of shells come from when the sea lay so far away?
What we can say for sure is that these cowries came from distant tropical seas. The big question people usually ask is how they were transported and what route they followed. One possibility is the natural corridor leading south from Sanxingdui. From Sanxingdui, it heads south across China's southwestern region, reaching as far as South Asia and Southeast Asia.
Professor Li believes that Sanxingdui was linked to the outside world through an early Silk Road reaching the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean. The ancient Shu capital was a genuine trade hub, connecting the sea, the Yangtze River, and the Central Plains.
Sanxingdui had a network to exchange resources with the outside world. Given how vital this network was to its growth, I think Sanxingdui's eventual collapse may be linked to it.
In June 2023, the latest dating results from the project to trace the origins of Chinese civilization indicated that the ritual pits at Sanxingdui were filled during the late Shang to early Zhou, about 3,000 years ago. Sanxingdui witnessed the rise and decline of an ancient Shu capital. It shows the connections and mutual influences between the ancient Shu civilization and other civilizations in China, proving the unity and diversity of Chinese civilization. Influenced by the Yellow River civilization and enriched through exchanges with neighboring cultures, Sanxingdui flourished remarkably. Its age may have passed, but the journey of civilization continues on this land filled with legend. Resilient, optimistic, hardworking, and ingenious people will continue to create their own legends.